All right. So we are going live. Doot, doot, doot. Yay, Instagram worked pretty quick this time. I'm happy.
Cool.
Okay. I
Oh,
know,
wow.
gotta make
Look at
sure.
that. That's crazy.
All right. So we'll give it like a minute. Sometimes there's a little bit of a delay, but it does show me live on IG.
Oh, yeah, I just got a notification. Oh,
Perfect. I'm just gonna check Twitter. Twitter and where else? Twitter and YouTube. I'm just like, let me just make sure before I start talking, um, that we're good. Yep, it's live. Okay. I was like, look, we in a little retrograde. I gotta make sure my tech's working right.
honestly, this
Um,
retrograde hasn't been that bad. I've been
Mine's
like
been pretty
doing
good.
good.
Like, let me knock on some wood real fast,
Yeah,
but nah,
you
it's
know,
been pretty good.
it's been pretty smooth.
All
I hope
right,
it stays
y'all.
that way because I remember one retrograde, and maybe it could be because I've been fasting, but like we did the Daniel fast not too long ago, and it like the first 3 days of the fast were it just insane. So I think the retrograde is just like it's mild work at this point.
Hey, see, that means you're doing your inner work. See, you know how to flow through it. All right. We're going to go ahead and get started, y'all, in like 30 seconds. But yep, it's showing me live on everything. So we should be good to go. Except for, oh, yep, nope, YouTube gave me a notification finally. It usually takes like 2 minutes. So I'm like, let me just be patient with it.
Yeah, I mean honestly, this technology is like advanced beyond measure. So I don't if one as long as one platform connects, I'm like you're doing great.
See, look. I was like, eventually I'm gonna get me a nice like a moderator in here so I can like focus one
Yeah,
thousand
like
percent. But for
you
right
could have different
now,
areas.
look, one day y'all might see me with a second camera connected and get real fancy, but we'll see,
That's
we'll
funny.
see. All right, to be cognizant of time, knowing that you're in the studio, let's go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and just start out with a brief introductions and we'll just go ahead into our conversation today. But welcome everyone to Unearthly Studios Industry Trailblazer Chats. We're back with episode 2 with our second featured trailblazer, Megan Jordan. So I'm very excited to have her introduce herself in just a second and share a little bit more about herself before we go into some of the questions that we have prepared for her today. A lot of y'all also sent in some questions, but if you are joining us live and you have questions, go ahead and enter it into the comment box, comment section on whichever platform you're streaming from. We will be able to pull those in, and I'll be checking Instagram Live also too throughout the course of this conversation. So go ahead if you have any questions that come to mind, any feedback, let us know. We want to make this very interactive and as interactive as possible. So very excited if you're catching the replay. Hi, always got to say that too. And I'm going to go ahead and pass the microphone over to Megan so she can introduce herself. And then we're going to go ahead and get started with some of the questions that we have today.
Oh, I'm up. I'm up. Okay. Hi, everyone. Firstly, thank you, Jazz, for having me. My name's Megan. I run a music company called The Village, where we manage 3 artists and we also get into the production side of things in terms of events and content creation. We've been active for like 3 years now, and we hit 4 years this summer, June 15th. So I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Oh, and I work at BET. I'm an executive assistant on the music team to a wonderful lady named Connie Orlando at BET.
Hey, you just had to slide that in. You almost forgot. You almost forgot. No,
I
I
did.
can't wait. I definitely have a question for you about some of your creative work and more of what you do over at BET. So excited to get into that a little bit later on within the conversation. So I know we have people that are still rolling in and joining us live. So hi, we're just about to get started with our first question that we have for Megan. If you have any questions, go ahead, drop them in the comment section. We will be checking throughout. And yes, so definitely the first question I know that I had is like always the first question. Just wanted to learn more of about your career background, where you're from, and what inspired you, or how did you get your start within working within music, and on the creative side.
Yeah, I mean, the where I'm from question is always a bit tricky because I was born in LA, but I moved to Atlanta when I was like 11, and so I have been hopping back and forth between LA and Atlanta for pretty much my entire life. Like when I lived in LA, I spent the summers in Atlanta, and when I lived in Atlanta, I spent the summers in LA. And then when I honestly, my musical journey started when I moved to Atlanta and would spend my summers in LA, and I spent a lot of time. My family is very, very close, especially me and my cousins. So I spent a lot of time at my cousin Sierra's house, who also works in music. She's a sync manager, a heavy hitter. So if you need some sync placements,
Hey,
go hit her up. But
good
yeah,
to know.
we've been like attached at the hip forever, and so we kind of really started to bond and connect over music when we were really, really young, around like Nostalgia Ultra, Friday Night Lights. I remember one time she played me, and this is kind of where like I can like note where I'm just like, oh, I'm into this. Um, she played me "Premeditated Murder" by J. Cole off the Friday Night Lights mixtape, and just the lyrical capabilities that he had kind of took me by storm a little bit. But I will say that like music for me has always been very communal and always very much so based in the power of words and how those words translate to people. So one, it kind of drew me to that because I just always wanted to have a hand in making music that like impacted me the way impacts others the way it's impacted me. And then the communal piece of it is just because that's how we bonded. We got close because we were like, yo, did you hear this Frank record? Yo, did you hear this Janae record? Like it just
Yep.
has always been our thing. So I think just creating that foundation has been helpful for my journey overall. But that's how it started. And then
I
when I
love
was
that.
15, I realized that like this thing called an A&R existed, and I was like, well, that's it. I'm actually not an A&R, but like that was when I realized that you could make a living off of music. So it snowballed into a lot of different things, but that's where it started.
See, I love that, and I love that like music, even similar like for myself, it started at home first, and just
Hmm.
like being a fan of music first and foremost, and that's definitely what led me to wanting to work with artists myself and going into artist management and really wanting to go into that development side of things, which is what I know that y'all focus on over at the Village Music. So
Yeah.
definitely, I'm so excited to learn more about your experience there as well too. And then in terms of like management and like going into like working with artists, I know you said you discovered like learned what an A&R was like pretty early on, like when you were a
Yeah.
teenager. Did you always know that you wanted to go like into like management or like what is artist development? I want to work in this realm. Like, did you always know that, or did this it kind of come about in a different way?
No, I mean, it kind of happened on accident, really. I remember, um, I so I knew I wanted to work in music. I always knew that, and I knew eventually, like, I wanted to have a music company, just because I felt like that would give me the opportunity to have autonomy over the type of music that I created or helped create. But the through line there, I wasn't necessarily sure. I just was kind of going where the music was, and at the time, I had all this internship experience when I was getting out of college, and then by the time I graduated college, and then I ended up going to law school for a year, and then I left law school mostly because I decided, I really want to I want to focus on music. I didn't have the opportunity between graduating college and starting law school to like really focus in and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do in music. And I also didn't necessarily believe in myself enough to try. Um, so I just kind of went with what I knew would work. Like you graduate, you go to law school, we'll try this. Um, in my senior year of college, I met Reggie and we were just like friends, like one of my friends named Cruz, who was like the man around campus in terms of um in terms of campus, I mean my college campus. He was like the man around town in terms of doing music, and he was executive producing Reggie's first project. So we would be hanging out and he'd be like, "Oh, I have to leave. I got a session with Reggie." And it was like nobody had ever heard of or met this person, but like every other week, he's like, "I got to go to the studio with Reggie. I have to go to the studio with Reggie." I'm like, Cruz, like at this point, I don't know who this man is, but enough is enough. Like you're always in the studio with him. Like what's going on? And so one day he was Reggie needed like these arguing scenes recorded on his EP. And so I went with my friend Faye Sean, and she was supposed to do the arguing scene. And I kind of just went because again, like by this time in college, I'm ready to lock in on the music thing. And I wanted to be in the studio. Like, I wanted to be around. I wanted to see, what was going on and just be a fly on the wall. Anyway, I get there, and that was the first time I had met Reggie, and we just ended up being really, really fast friends. Like, I want to say immediately we just started hanging out. Fun fact too, my friend didn't end up doing the arguing scene with him, so I did it. So like somewhere in the ether, if you guys dig deep enough in his catalog, you'll hear that little scene, and it came from like the first time we hung out. But long story short, I met him. We became really good friends. And by the time I get to law school, again, I'm kind of at this place where I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to do this. I'm not fulfilled. I'm not really enjoying it. And I grew up around parents who like loved what they do, like they work in finance, it works for them, they love it. So to me, like, while I knew that I didn't want to necessarily go that route, they always gave me the example of like, be happy in what you're doing. And I hated law school. I hated it. It was going good. Like it was, yay. But I just, it wasn't for me. So I left, and around that time, my first semester of law school is when Reggie and I kind of decided like, hey, what would happen if we kind of just locked in and made things move? He was, like I said, it was his first EP. So he was at the beginning of his journey. I was just like, yo, I really want to be this executive. I want to make music. I want to do all of these things. And that was the opportunity to really do that from the ground up with somebody who was at the same place in their life. So that's kind of how that started. And from there, management really wasn't the objective. It was just like see a need, fill a need. So I really got started with Reggie. Like he had a manager at the time. So we got started just like booking live shows, like we went on run after run after run after run. And eventually it just was a natural progression into management, into the village, into where we are now and all of the different avenues. But like, it wasn't the objective. It was just kind of me realizing that there's a very non-linear approach that you could take to this industry.
Yeah. Oh, no, thank you for sharing that backstory and the context of like how it came about. Like for me, I didn't think management was even something I would consider until I like learned everything that it was. And I was like, oh, I already do these things and I'm really great at it. I could do this. And I could do it well. So I love that. And I didn't know like yours and Reggie's like history went back like that extensive.
Yes.
So that's like really cool to see, like truly building from the ground up. And I've been able to witness the last few years of that, but I know it goes back way further. So it's just cool to see.
We knew like 5 people when we got started. Like, and he knew 2 people, I knew 2 people, and then we met one person. And it's just like, but again, that's kind of where the name comes from, right? Because in the beginning, it was very much so relying on our community to help us do these things that we didn't necessarily have the budget or the experience or the notoriety to do. And it was people that we would meet at shows who were like, yo, I believe in the vision. I see it. I love the music. How can I help? And that kind of just continued to propel us.
I love that. Yes, I am a fan of Reggie and your other artist, Jordan, as well, too. I've been running back through the discographies lately for everyone. It's and that kind of segues into what my second question was really, I know you did mention that you always knew you wanted to have your own like music company. So wanting to learn a little bit more about the Village music and how it came to life. I know you work also with Edgar as well too. So definitely want to hear more about the backstory and the journey into launching your own music company. As I know that y'all focus really at the heart is artist development. Which is why like I'm a fan. Yes, we need more of it. But also I know y'all touch creative and production, live events, etc. as well too.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so when I went to law school, and I will say, like, I think that while it wasn't necessarily what I needed to be doing academically. I think that year that I spent there was one of the most formative years, and I absolutely needed it. Like, it was the first time I had this apartment in Koreatown, and it was the first time that I had actually lived by myself. Um, in my life, really, because I was at home before in terms of like high school, and then I lived with roommates all of college. And so by the time I got to law school, it's like, okay, I'm in a 1 bedroom space, and I could sit and I could be with myself, and really determine what it is that I wanted to do. Um, and of course, like, I always knew that the company was a thing, but by the time I started working with Reggie, I'm like inspired. I'm ready to just like really activate. I don't know where it's gonna go necessarily, but like, I knew that it was what I wanted to do, and so I kind of just let it uh, free flow, And I remember one day, like I said, I started working with him in law school, so I remember being in. Sorry, also if it's loud. I'm in the studio and the door's open, so I
Hey,
don't know if you can hear it.
they
Um,
understand. She's in the studio,
but
y'all.
um, but yeah, I was in school. I was in class one day, and it had gotten to the point. This is when I knew it was like time to go. It had gotten to the point where like I'm in class, and instead of like paying attention to the lecture and taking notes, like I'm sending outreach emails. I'm like, hey, did you see this come through? Like, I'm just in a totally different headspace. And I was texting him one day, and I'm like, well, it takes a village. And I'm like, oh man, that's it. That's the name. Like, it's the village. And so, like I said, in that apartment, it was like there was a lot of solace because it was just mine. So I could come in, I could like release all of the stressors of my day, but it also had these really cool like wall of windows. And so I remember I kind of just took an expo marker and just from A to Z, like, mapped it all out. Like, and I posted on Instagram the other day. But it started with the like, what are your purest intentions? Because somebody
Mm.
that I went to college with kind of told me that that was a really good guiding principle to have whenever you're trying to figure out what you should do, and like, what if you're at a crossroads, like, how do you keep yourself rooted in what actually matters? So I started there. What are your purest intentions? And that kind of led to the drop down of getting to the village. And then it was just like, okay, like, so what do you want to do beyond that? And at the time I was like, oh, well, there was so many different avenues that I could take with it. But it started honestly in that apartment in Koreatown. That's kind of where it was birthed. And I just have continued to make strides, and it has changed so many different times. The roster has changed. I've changed. The team has changed because of course we have Edgar. Um, but yeah, it's been cool, but it started within the year that I spent in law school. And like I said, I didn't automatically start the company and just start working in music because I didn't feel like I could do it. I didn't have an example, I didn't have the opportunity, and I didn't know how going out to get it would look. Um,
Yeah,
but the year was instrumental because by the time I left, I knew that I could do it because I was doing it,
doing
right?
it.
And
Yeah.
I had something concrete and tangible that I could say, all right, I believe in this. Like, let's see what happens. So yeah, it was birthed in that apartment, and it's continued to live now on throughout where we are now.
Uh, I love that, and just hearing how the village came to be and came to life. And one of my Tyler Perry
Hmm.
quotes I always go back to is like, "Never despise humble beginnings." Like, we
Hmm.
all start somewhere, whether you're starting in the garage like Zuckerberg or you're starting within
Hmm.
your bedroom. My agency was definitely birthed in my bedroom. Like, but to see like to take something from like truly like a vision and like to birth it
Hmm.
into the world, like, kudos. Like, launching anything of your own, a business, like a company, just like a creative venture, it's no easy
Hmm.
feat. So, and y'all been
Yeah.
doing it. I've been seeing the work that y'all have been putting in, and just, I know y'all have a thriving community, a village around y'all, champion like everything that y'all are doing. So definitely wanted to hear a little bit more about your artists. I know that
Yeah.
you manage Reggie and you have a couple other artists on your core roster. So wanted to just hear a little bit more about them. 2024, I'm sure y'all are up to some exciting things in house as well. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a chance to shine a light on some of the artists that your team is working with.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've talked so much about Reggie already, but he's kind of like our ground zero person, Um, and then of course, like I said, like right now we're at a really cool place. I feel like the roster is finally at a place where I'm like, I'm happy with it. I'm proud of it. I'm like, we've hit that. that pocket where we kind of cover all sectors, right? So we have Reggie who sings, a male R&B singer with a crazy pen as well. And then you have Shaw, whose pen is bananas in terms of songwriting, whether it's any genre really across the board. But he's also a really, really talented rapper. And then we have Jordan, who is an R&B singer, um, and she kind of duels the lane of like R and pop, you know. So I'm excited to see how all of those things kind of start to intertwine. But the thing that makes me the most excited is like it took a lot to get the roster to a place where everyone could commune together, right? So like it needed to be something that didn't feel like three people, three artists who make music and we just all happen to share one manager or share one company that we're in. You know, it had to feel
Yeah.
like a I like this person. I'll go out to eat with this person. I'll hang out with this person because we spend so much time together. Like we hang out together, we go on vacations together, like we party together. I mean, we're still young, you know. So you know, it needed to that person needed to be able to assimilate into it. And I think Reggie and Shaw knew each other before I even got into the picture. And then on top of that, like I went to college with Shaw, so there was already that dynamic. And then Jordan is just like Jordan is Jordan. She's a breath of fresh air, and her personality is just a very nice addition to the group. So they mesh well, and then sonically too, I think is something that was important. So like Jordan and
Mhm.
Shaw are in the studio for the first time tomorrow, actually, and I'm sad I can't be there. But like that type of stuff is like it's important, you know. You want to be able to
Yeah.
feel like you can lean on the people in which you're working with and not just transactional because I've been in those type of relationships in the past and they didn't necessarily serve us, you know? So I think the
Right.
biggest thing that I'm excited about with the roster is like the music is great. The music is gonna music. We're doing what we can to amplify it. But it makes me happy to feel like we have a little bit of a hub that we can build from in terms of like our journey and welcoming other people into that experience.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And I know that, even adding one new artist to the roster isn't a decision your team takes lightly. Like you want to make sure
Mhm.
that, it's the right fit and it makes sense. And I know that Reggie and Shaw have like a few tracks together already. So I'm excited to hear that Jordan and Shaw are gonna be in studio too. So oh my goodness! Look, Edwin himself. What is up?
You got my AirPods.
I'm really working on music over there.
Today. We in the gym. What? Are we trying to do tomorrow same time?
Megan the Mogul is doing management stuff
Studio.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
in real time, y'all.
I thought you was talking about the afternoon. I'm like, that might not
No.
Okay,
But we got
okay.
a little Reggie cameo.
Yes.
Megan,
What's up, Reggie? Thank you for making an
No, you gotta say
appearance.
what's happening? Of course. I will say this thing that happened.
Oh, she's muting you.
Sorry.
They're
You gotta run
trying
that back. That
to
was
say she
so
wanted the greatest
kind.
thing. Oh, they leaving. We know they said about.
That's what I'm saying. But also too, it's supposed to be a. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
No, you good. Twitter was asking where are y'all?
Sorry.
They're
But
in
he
the
was saying I was the best thing
studio.
that ever happened to him. If y'all didn't catch that, he did say that. Edgar heard it. Edgar's over here too, y'all. Hold on.
We got it. Hi, Edgar. What's up?
He's gone. The studio session is over, so everybody's leaving. But hold on 1 second. That's what counts in the text. But anyway, but that's kind of what I mean. Like it just has to feel good. It has to feel communal. You know what I mean? Like we spend so much time, we have a good time together. So that's what
I love
mean.
it. I can tell y'all a real family over there. But no, it's great to get a little Reggie cameo. See, Megan's in the zone right now, y'all. The work doesn't stop. But yeah, so we asked Megan a little bit about the Village music. So y'all got to see one of her artists. And yeah, so one of the other questions was, I know you guys brought Jordan into the roster a little bit later. What are some of the characteristics, traits? What does your team what does your team look for in the artist that you decide that you want to bring on or work with, develop, etc.?
Sorry, I think that it just. Can you hear me?
Okay. Did it cut out?
Okay, I wasn't sure if it got disconnected. Like my AirPods are going in and out. Honestly, I think the biggest thing is just like one, the music of it all, but also just like vision is the biggest thing. And I think that's something that we kind of realized early on was important because we can't really make something happen out of thin air. You know, at a certain point, it's like I have to understand what it is you want to be able to nurture that. So I would say honestly, like vision would be the number two thing, and the first thing is just like enjoying the music, and liking the music, or liking understanding your artistic ability enough to be able to work the music into a place that makes sense.
No,
But
that
vision
makes sense.
overall.
Vision is definitely everything. I feel like
Hmm.
even for my artists that I work with, of course, like more day to day, but even for clients, since I do work with artists or pretty much most of my clients right now, and one of the
Hmm.
questions I always ask, like, I need to understand like your vision, like what does success look like for you, like because success is something different for everyone, but in order for me to like help connect the dots and help bridge the
Hmm.
gap of like where you are to where you want to go, you have to know where you want to go first, or
Exactly.
like, so vision is definitely paramount and so important. And I encourage every artist to spend some time with that. Like,
Hmm.
journal that out, ask yourself those questions. Take some time to gain that clarity, because as you're bringing in other people to help you on your journey, whether it's a manager, a creative director, like a stylist, like whoever is going to be a part of this team that's helping you build your world, they're going to have to also understand your vision. You're going to have to be able to articulate that. So true. Vision it's everything. Oh,
Yes.
good. Yes. So moving on from the village a little bit, because I know you do some other cool creative work. Wanted to touch
Yeah.
on your experience over at BET and learn a little bit more of like your role there. I know you mentioned it briefly within your intro, but and touch on like even some of your favorite projects you've worked on, or the things that you're most excited about from working with the BET team, because I know you've been doing that for a while too. So
Yeah,
that's a
I
good
honestly
thing.
just hit 3 years at BET like 5 days ago. So
Congratulations, the big three.
yeah. And oh, that's so crazy that I guess it did like 3 years of BET, 3 years of the village. That's kind of cool. 3 and 3. But no, yeah,
Let's
I'm an
go.
I'm an executive assistant at BET on the music team under a woman named Connie Orlando, who is just like probably the first woman in music that I could say I would love to have a career that emulates that, you know? So like to work under her, it was very, very inspiring. And also BET in general, like is run by Black women, you know, in positions of power. Like, yes, there's Black men there, but the majority of the people and the employees at BET are Black women. So just as a personal development note, um, it was very empowering and gave me a lot of assurance that my voice was okay and that what I was saying was okay, whether or not my tone was crazy or whether or not, you know, I'm speaking out in a room full of anyone. You know, it just kind of assured me that I can say what I said and it's, you know, things still need to move. So it gave me a lot of confidence to be in those walls. But on the music team, I've been blessed to be able to work under a boss who's very nurturing in the sense of like, if you enjoy music, by all means, explore what you can do here at BET and the music team. Like, I'm not going to stop you from doing what it is you want to do. So, my first year, I kind of like got the lay of the land. I figured out, you know, how to master the role and what it was because it is still a EA desk, you know, so it's very hands on. And then from there, it just became okay, well, how do I want to make an impact at BET? What kind of cool stuff could I do? And at the time, I like was super into this pocket of doing stuff that 16-year-old me would be excited about. So I feel like my journey thus far has been very indicative of that. But at BET, I think the coolest thing, the thing that I'm most proud of is for the Soul Train Awards, which is my favorite show because I'm a lover of all things R&B. We did this partnership with Spotify where we took over their playlist in newness and curated it with all of the R&B acts who were nominated or who were winning awards or performing at the Soul Train Awards. And then we paired that with like a social activation as well as like a pre-show performance. Um,
That's so
so it
cool.
was cool to like work hand in hand with the Spotify team and like see all of that come to life. And it was like an experience. It was a world that was built, which is like also one reason I like artist development because it's just like you can create a whole new world, a whole narrative. So yeah, that's probably my favorite project to date at BET.
I love it. I love it. I know. And like within in 3 years, I'm sure you've gotten to work on a lot of cool things and you've learned a lot. But even touching on the personal and professional development and being able to like be in rooms with other people who look like you, it's so important. Like, so I'm so happy
It
you've had that
is.
experience because I know even too, like on the out when I made the decision of like, okay, I know I want to, get into doing like music marketing and artist management, I was like, okay, who are the women in music who I can like see myself like okay, no, I see your career is looking like what I want to do. So
Yeah, it's helpful. It's helpful. And I will say that like I think what aside from that, like I always knew that my voice was valued, and I always knew that I was intelligent. I always knew that I knew what I was talking about in terms of music. I think the difference is like as a black woman, sometimes you have that feeling of like, okay, are there any stereotypes being attached to me because I've said something this way? So I think a lot of the anxiety that I would place on myself had a lot to do with like my experience as a black woman in these spaces. I never had the issue of like speaking up, but it was more so just okay, then I leave overthinking like, should I have said that or was that taken the wrong way? And I think being at BET has shown me to like being 100% comfortable in myself, and how I present and how I show up because it's nothing with black people. And like they're flowing. They're not in a situation where they're second guessing that. So
yeah.
that's kind of what I mean about the confidence aspect. It was like I was always confident, but it always had that like 10 seconds after I'm overthinking. And now it's just like, okay, well, that's just gonna be what it's gonna be. Like how do we move on from that?
Yeah, yeah, and I know it's the journey. It takes some time to get there too,
Yeah.
and like finding your voice and being sure of yourself, and also understanding that you're in those rooms because you're meant to be there and to take up space.
Mm-hmm.
I be telling all my sisters, take up space, let your voice be heard,
Yes.
even when
Always.
it shakes. Speak your truth. Do it respectfully, y'all,
Yes.
but speak your truth. Um, so yeah,
Truly.
no,
And when I was growing up, my mom used to always tell me God give you a voice for a reason. So like I'm sure that probably bites her back, now that I'm older and have so much to say about everything. But, you know, that's the truth. God give you a voice for a reason. Use it.
1000%, 1000%. What was the next question that I had? Dived into your creative work with BET, learned about the Village music. This one, South by Southwest, since I know that
Yeah.
your team was there and present and had some really great shows that had gone on that y'all were featured on, for I know
Hmm.
Jordan and Reggie. So since this Southwest is so timely and there's a lot of artists who definitely are within the community who are hoping to hit those sorts of stages on the much bigger festival circuits. Would love to hear about South by Southwest this year. I know y'all released some great content like the on the road to South by that I was checking out. So it was cool to be able to see the journey and the rehearsals and what led up to,
Hmm.
those moments, those big moments for your artists. So yeah, I would love to dive into South by this year and your experience there.
Yeah. Well, firstly, shout out to Aztec for the content. Fantastic, fantastic videographer. Edgar put us on to him. Um, but yeah, I mean, South by was really cool. It was everybody's first year doing it. And I think it's kind of one of those things where it was like, um, it's been on our goal list for so long as one of those just like check mark things. And again, like we've been working, the village was formed 3 years ago, but I think we've been working in totality for like almost 5 years. So that was the first time we had touched that stage. And I think what makes it special is like, it's all very much so independent and relationship based. So it was good. It showed us a lot about like preparing for a long run or just a longer type of show. But it was good. It was good. Ultimately, I think it was nice to be in that space, in that environment, and also like figuring out how to maximize while you're there and take advantage of the opportunities to network with other artists, network with other organizations, and really just understand the lay of the land when it comes to the conference in general. But I think it was a good experience overall. The show was cool. And I think now it's just like, all right, how do we build upon that? We did it once, and it went great. So now it's like, how do we make it better the next time or bigger the next time we come? But I think it was special, and that's another reason why we wanted to make sure to document it, because it was our first time there, you know, and it felt like all right, we're doing the right thing. A level has been unlocked.
Yes, congratulations, like to you and the team for hitting those stages. I love what I was able to see as someone who wasn't there, but yo, it's such a big moment, and I'm so glad you documented it. I'm like the document queen. I'm like, document everything. And I know you work at BT, so you're
Yeah.
like, where the camera at? Camera's on. We're capturing everything, and we'll cut the footage later. But I am so happy for you and your team, and that y'all got to hit those stages. And there's only more to come. So like, I know you know there's so much work that goes into, you know, preparing to have those moments of opportunity that come. So I know even for the artists that are like within my community, and then even my own artists who are still developing hidden stages
Right.
for the first time, preparing to even go like, you know, on their first tours. What are some, like, I guess for live performance, are there any tips or like advice you would give to artists, whether it's like performing, like how to get shows, any tips you would have in terms of live performances?
Um, yeah, practice. And like, even if the shows don't feel like they matter, I think one of my favorite parts about like developing in terms of your live show is like the more you do the show, the better it gets. So get on as many stages as you can, even if it's 5 people in the audience or if it's 500. Um, and just do your best work each time. Don't be afraid to like take risks or different liberties with the music, and experiment. You know, I think the point of like a live show is to bring the music to life, you know? So like, yes, you can play the track, but how can you program it to make it sound a little bit more, you know, how can you
Yeah.
bring something different to the table? I think that's why I enjoy seeing, you know, our roster perform, because like everybody has a different live show. You know, like Reggie's live show is always like intertwined with these pop cultural moments, which are cool, and then the dancing, you know, and then Jordan kind of is very much so in a storyteller era. So
Yep.
she's talking you through the narrative of what's going on, and then Shaw is just like captivating because his lyricism is so intense and his presence is felt, and you feel that energy being pulled in, you know. So
Yeah.
I think figuring out and creating those moments where you can really establish yourself in, you know, sometimes you do have to work for the audience. But I think that like practice, really expand and work on how you can develop and adapt the music for a live space. And just having fun too.
Gems. You just shared
Yeah.
so many gems. So I am definitely, everyone soak those up if you're joining us live. You're so right. I even know there's a lot of artists who don't really rehearse before shows and don't
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time like, hey, block out a space in your living room, map it out. Like, where are you
Yeah.
engaging with the crowds? What parts of your set are you talking to the audience? Like, all of this stuff matters, and the experience that you bring to life for your fans. So thank you for sharing those gems, since I know there's so many artists who are still in the very beginning stages. Maybe they are performing actively, but I also know a lot of artists, even within my own community, like on Twitter that I talk to, they're
Mm-hmm.
still very much developing in the live performance
Yeah.
area. And you're always going to be developing 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, y'all know that, but definitely that practice that you put in, and like really like, how can I create an experience on this stage with my 10,
Yeah.
15 minutes that I got? It matters.
Mm-hmm.
So it matters.
It does. It
Oh,
does. And I think that like the fans always leave feeling a lot more fulfilled, you know? And that's really the
yeah,
purpose. Like I always say, you know, we're of service, and what your service looks like is a bit different depending on who you are and what your intentionality is. But like your job as an artist and a performer is to give people something that they can hold on to and that they can take across their lives, you know? So a good show just gives them something to say, yo, I love this music. And sometimes if you're opening for a performer that maybe has a larger name than you're gaining new fans. So they're hearing you and seeing you live before they're getting to experience your music. So give them a reason to want to go
big.
home and stream it. You know, don't come up there and just be bland and just say, okay, well, I'm ready for the opener. Like, give them a reason to say, I gained a new fan today. I gained a new artist that I like today.
Yeah, that's so many gems Megan is sharing for all y'all. I realized I really loved artist development when I lived in the Bay Area. I would go to
Mm-hmm.
shows every other week. I think before the pandemic, I think I went to, I don't know, like 30, 40 shows, but they were like very small venues in the Bay Area or hole in the walls where I'd find an artist, go support. They maybe have, sometimes there's 5 or 10 people there. But when you can, what made me a fan is when I don't care if there's 0, you performing like there's 100,000 out there and just giving me that energy and creating that experience. Like, I love finding artists like that maybe you're doing their first few shows, because like I just love live performances, and I learn a lot. I learn about a lot from these sets. So y'all capture those gems. Meg is sharing them. If you're gearing up for live performances, rehearse. It's important. Yeah, I have like one more question for you before I hop into our Q&A portion. So just wanted to do a little reminder. If anyone has any questions for Megan or myself, either of us, you can use the comments on the platform that you're streaming from. We can pull some of them in to StreamYard, which is really cool, but I'm also checking on IG Live for any questions that y'all might have. Just put them in the comments. Don't try to use the question box since I can't see those. But right this second. But I do have some questions that people submitted over the past 24 hours or so. So have one last question before we hop into the Q&A to give anyone some time to prepare any additional questions for you. And yeah, this is like a great segue to be able to kind of wrap some things up too. And you kind of answer this a little bit within like live performances, but are there like other like 1 or 2 pieces of like gems or advice that you would give to either an artist or a creative that's pursuing a path in music? What are some of the things that you've learned either in your experience as a music executive, artist manager, or from being so hands-on with artists day to day for other artists in the room? What advice would you give to us?
I would just say keep going. That's it. Like, keep going. I think that, like, for one, start. And then once you start, don't stop. I always live by this quote that says rest, but don't quit. In this industry, there's just so many different emotions that you get, so many types of people that you have to deal with, like so many different levels of work that you have to do, while also still battling like you as a person and your family and your friends and your life. Like, there's a lot of elements that come into play, but I think my biggest advice would be start whatever it is, and then rest, but don't quit. Even when you go through the phases of like, I'm really not feeling this right now, even when you feel like you failed at something, even when you feel like your heart isn't necessarily in it, like there's so many pivots that you can make. So just keep going until you find that place that feels like home. And whether it's music in tech, whether it's music in production, whether it's music in engineering, you know, like whatever the music is or whatever element is your root, but like keep going until you figure it out, and then do it with a purpose and with intention and with a passion.
I love that. Keep going. And it's so true. It's so true as with anything. And it's something I have to remind myself on my own journey every single day. Like I always say, like brick by brick, step by step, day by day. And it's kind of like that reminder to myself to like slow down, like find joy in the process, and kind of like, you know, keep going despite of. And I know like as us, like as creative entrepreneurs, artists, like you are building your own business around, you know, your music and your artistry. There's so many days where it's like, did the needle move at all this week, this month? But
you know what I mean? And that's something too, like I think that you have those moments, like even before we even signed Jordan, I feel like the boys will tell you like every other week, I'm like, yeah, I just want to hang out with Jordan, but it's like, it's nothing serious. And they would be like, Megan, please, like, we don't believe you. But there was a point in time where I was just coming out of a business relationship, a couple business relationships that had gone sour, and I just felt like a failure. So I just like didn't necessarily want to like do it again. So I was telling her like, hey, I can't continue on in this field of managing and like taking somebody else on, you know, but like there was still that want to do it. I just was like, I need a break right now. I need a minute to like heal past all of this. And then we can, you know, eventually we got to the point where we are now, but there are so many different elements and so many different ways where it's just like, this isn't working. This is hard. But if you want it, you do it.
1000%. That's why I was like, oh, blessed for me that I don't have a quitting bone in my body. I will cry it out, journal it out, go talk to God. But look, we're gonna get up tomorrow and just keep trying again. Like, you know, and
That's
I think it's the beauty in the journey, but also why I feel like being so rooted in who you are and your vision and having like faith in that of like, I know I can't see that today. It doesn't look like it around me, but I know where I'm going. So that's why like anchoring onto like your vision, the North Star, like I tell my artists that all the time, like you gotta focus on your why. Like that's what matters the most. And you know, all because it's what's gonna keep you going on the days, weeks, months where you're like, whew, I don't know, where's the white towel at? We all hit those moments. We all hit
time
those
to
walls.
surrender. Give it a break.
Yeah.
New York say, give it up, delicious.
Yes. All right. Well, those are all the questions that we had prepared for you today. Definitely had a couple questions that had came in, so wanted to go ahead and just answer those, and then we're gonna let you go. So one of the first questions was, yeah, I remember. How do you find your balance being a mogul, Megan? Doing all that you do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it like varies day by day. And I've also learned to just like respect rest when I need rest. So that's kind
Ooh,
of the
big.
biggest thing, and like I've gotten out of the habit now of like feeling bad for when I need to like lay down or taking an extra 30 minutes to sleep. So I think ultimately like the balance lies in the rest. Like if you don't rest, you can't work. So but yeah, that's where you struggle with that, right? So like when I get sick, it's kind of like, oh, I'm sick because I've been up and moving for all this time, and I just kind of pushed past what I should have rested through. So the balance is like that changes day to day. Like, am I because it's never really a 50-50 thing. But it's like, okay, today I spent X amount of time doing this and it needed to get done. Or today I spent this day doing meetings, but they needed to happen. Or,
Yep.
hey, I need to go spend time with my friends, so I'm just going to go, and then I'll come right back. But I think the balance lies in the rest. Like, it's a Saturday afternoon. I don't have anything to do. Let me not make anything to do. Um,
Oh, I
which is
love
like
not
not
making
always the best.
plans.
That's like that's not always the best or the easiest thing to do because there's so much to do and outside is always calling. But yeah, it's just taking the rest where you can get the rest.
For sure. Rest is huge. And I was having this conversation with another artist, and I'm like, I talk to especially my artists and clients about mental health a lot, especially within
Mhm.
music. And like also too, like as creatives, content creators, like there's always that onus of like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And I've
Mhm.
learned, y'all, since being a business owner, there is always something else to do.
Oh my gosh,
So
it just like doesn't end.
it does not end, and that work will not stop until I shut my computer. So I've
Mhm.
even had to like exert like very strict boundaries with my schedule. It's to the point where
Mhm.
I time block things, like even going to meditate. Like I'm like, I
Mhm.
will make myself have those moments because it's just like we schedule time for everybody else on the calendar. Why aren't we doing that for ourselves first? I'm just
No,
saying.
really. And I think that like one of my biggest goals this year is like I feel like as I'm getting older, I understand my career development and my career trajectory, but like I am now trying to figure out what like my personal development looks like, in the sense of like who is Megan as a person? Like what are my icks? What are my quirks? What are things that I need to be better on? How can I be better, and develop that side of myself because I feel like I've spent so much time trying to become this person that I now am that it's just like, okay, like make sure you're developing as a woman now, as a friend, as a family member, and all of the above, and just like sticking to the goals that I set for myself personally, like, all right, I want to have a morning routine, stick to that. Okay, I want to make sure that I'm eating a certain type of way, stick to that, and like be firm in the personal goals that I set for myself just as much as I am in my career related goals, which is hard. So that's kind of a different version of the balance question, but it's kind of very big for me currently because I'm trying to find that balance of like personal development in the midst of career development.
Yeah, now that all makes so much sense. And now that I'm in my early 30s, I feel like I focused so much in my 20s, as most people post college, on just like this professional development of like, I'm just trying to get my next promotion,
to make it, right.
Trying to make it, grow the corporate ladder, did that, y'all. Whew. But now in my 30s, I'm definitely going back to like, okay, I understand, like same thing, like where I'm going with my career, but what about jazz? Like, how do I personally develop, like as a person? Because everything,
like, what do I want?
Say, what do I want? And also, I'm like, I got to be the best human I can be, so I could be the best manager, I could be the best CEO, the best, team leader, boss, etc. So all those things are so important. Like, I 1000% resonate with everything that you're saying. So, final question before we wrap up today. The other question that had come in yesterday was, how do you manage a full-time job and also being there for your artists? And I know you have your own company, so I know it's a whole other thing too.
That's a whole other like shit is going on. It's like I said, like balance really, like it's never a 50-50, but I will say that like open communication and like boundaries has been a big thing. Like I know when I first started at BET, it was like a huge thing because I was really excited about the job, but it also became a thing where like my priorities shifted a bit. Like I wanted to be good at BET. I wanted to be good at like building that part of my career up in a way that took away from what was being built on the Village side and how I was showing up as a manager. So like counter correcting that, but that was like, again, like when you have open communication and like are able to understand and hear what someone is saying, but also being able to like give your same perspective and that same experience, you can move past things. But I think it's now just being, when you know better, you do better. So trying to be more cognizant of how that works in the grand scheme of things is definitely like, again, a delicate act, but it just depends on the time. And I think that like everybody's job has periods of time where you're just going to be exceedingly busy. So preparing for that, to me, it's like the same thing as the rehearsal thing, like prepare. Like one of my friends told me once, a few years back, where it's just like, yo, you don't prepare. And I was just like, she's never going to be able to say that to me again. So now it's just like, and it's not even, she wasn't even trying to be malicious, like she was just like,
yeah,
you're not prepared. And I was just like, wow, I don't like that, so
right.
Like now it's one of those things where I try to be prepared before going into anything, whether it's just having an understanding of the lay of the land, what the schedule looks like, what the day is like, like whatever. And I think that also helps make things a bit easier and practicing forethought when you can.
Yeah, preparation is truly everything. Like, that's like even me, like the day before and the night before, I'm like, okay, let me put all my things on my calendar so I'm ready for the day. Any way that y'all can preparation, y'all, and just all aspects of life. But you hit on some really great things, especially with like, boundaries, being prepared. You dropped so many gems for the audience here today. So we're going to wrap up today's chat with our featured trailblazer, Megan Jordan. But I want to give you an opportunity to let everyone know where they can find you, how they can stay up to date on you, the Village music, your artist, etc. before I let you go.
Yeah, you can find us you can find me at Megan J, 2 N's, JAY, the Village Music _ on Instagram, and then our website at thevillagemusicgroup.com. And that'll lead you to every avenue under the sun in terms of what we do.
Yes. Thank you so much, Megan. Like, I truly appreciate you sharing time and space and just having the opportunity to get to hear more about your journey, especially as a fellow woman in music. I am always like champion and like amplifying and like anything that I see y'all doing, I'm like, yes, go queen, keep shining. But really, you have been someone like, along with last month, we had Erin Knight on, another Black woman in music who just doing incredible things. And when I was coming into the space a couple of years ago of like, okay, I want to get into artist management and artist development. Where are my sisters at? Where are the like women doing great things that look like me? Like, because I had to look too to find y'all, because I was like, it took me some time, but it's been great.
There's not too many others, but they are there.
We're here.
Shout out to Lauren Kennedy and Tia Long, also Black women.
Yes, I can't wait to connect with even more ladies in music over time, but so excited that we're able to share some time and space with you today. We're going to go ahead and end this stream, but really wanted to thank everyone who joined us live across platforms. I see what the total count has been, like 70 plus people within the space right now. So kudos to y'all for joining us live. This replay will be available on Unearthly Studios YouTube channel. It should be live in a little bit. So if you missed us or you popped in halfway, check the replay coming soon. And we'll be back with another chat with our next featured guest next month. So stay tuned, y'all. But have a good night. Bye, everyone.
See y'all later.